The other day we took delivery of this beautiful Triumph T100. Now we've done quite a few videos on this bike and reviews and stuff, but I've never ridden it personally, and in the back of my head I've always thought this bike is actually quite similar to the Royal Enfield Interceptor. So we thought, why not make a video comparing the two, and actually I think these might be quite a bit closer together than you might think they are.
Yeah, let's get into that. Starting with the Triumph T100. Now, I've said before, it's my favourite Bonneville, this and the Speedmaster, but all told, I'd say this probably is really because it's a better all-round bike. And as I said in a previous review, it's a Goldilocks bike. It's just right at pretty much everything. So it's a wonderful, wonderful motorcycle, and I love it to bits. But moving on to the Interceptor, which I haven't ridden for a couple of years now, so I jumped from that onto this, and I was very pleasantly surprised. It's a very remarkably good bike, and it does have a lot of character, so we're going to go into the differences, of course, and find out which one we like the best and help you make your decision too.
You'll have to excuse the jet fighters in the background, they practice a lot around here. But once we arrived at Sycamore Royal Enfield in Peterborough, thanks to them for lending us this Interceptor today, I actually rode the T100 first, and getting off my Moto Guzzi V7 Special and onto the T100, it did feel like it lacks a lot in character compared to that bike, and I've definitely made the right decision in buying that bike. I absolutely love it. There's nothing that compares pretty much on the new market in terms of character, but the character doesn't detract from it being a great motorcycle. It doesn't make it worse, it just gives it more sense of occasion. But getting off the T100 and onto the Interceptor, I actually thought this has got a bit more character than the Triumph. It's got some nice burbles, some nice burbly pops on the overrun, and the riding position I thought was slightly nicer. You've got slightly wider bars, you've got this cool looking crossbar on there as well, which looks really nice. It's a really good riding position actually, so especially for someone who's quite tall, 6 foot, it's perfectly comfortable. The seat's a little bit firm. I think the seat on the T100 is a little bit more comfortable, but getting on this, it's actually a little bit more flickable perhaps, and it's remarkable how close it feels in quality and rider performance to the Triumph. Now the Triumph has of course got the 900cc Bonneville parallel twin, and the Interceptor's got the 650 parallel twin from Royal Enfield, and there's actually not too much difference in terms of performance. This Triumph has got much more low down torque, so it feels like it pulls more from the low down. The Royal Enfield feels like you need to get it above sort of 4,500 RPM before it starts to go, but it doesn't feel much slower than this. So actually I think if you bought this, you wouldn't then get on one of these and think, oh, I'm a bit disappointed that I bought the Interceptor, because it really is rather close and there's not a lot in it.
I don't know about you, but I've been riding motorbikes all my life, and many a time I've gone out for a lovely ride, you think, oh, the weather forecast is great, off we go, and it starts to rain, and there's nothing more annoying than riding along in the rain with a helmet on. And we've always thought, well, how can we get around that? And we have found the ultimate solution. It's called Biker Guard, and it literally is a screen wiper for your helmet visor, and it installs ever so easily. It's brilliant because you operate this by the little button on the handlebars which comes with it, and it's already paired, so you don't have to worry about that. You press it once and you get a single wipe, and you double click it and you go through 3 different speeds of intermittent wipe, which is absolutely brilliant. So depending on how hard the rain is and how fast you're riding, you can get the right speed for what you're doing. The Biker Guard is a very high quality product. There are some fake ones out there and some knockoffs which are absolute rubbish, I can guarantee you that. This is the real deal. It really is good. It's not a gimmick, it's a very good product that actually works. So if you don't want to use the handlebar control, you can just press the thing on top of the helmet, but it's much easier with this. You don't have to take your hands off the handlebars while you're riding. It's brilliant. Top quality, very good, highly recommend it. It helps if you can see where you're going, especially in the rain, so this gives you that opportunity.
Click the link in the description and you can head to their website and check it out.
Now, the Triumph is quite a sophisticated motorcycle. It's very refined, and it looks like an old classic bike, but underneath it really is quite a modern motorcycle. It's very smooth, very soft clutch, very light, very easy to ride, and it's a beautiful bike. Now, coming to the Interceptor, it's a little bit more raw, let's say, and like Darcy said, it does therefore have a little bit more character, which kind of feels more immersive when you're riding. So when you're riding this thing, it feels a little bit more involving somehow, whereas that's sort of so refined, it's kind of perfect, but sometimes perfect isn't as good as rough, if you know what I mean.
If you are enjoying this video so far, make sure you subscribe. We do loads of these kind of videos on the channel. We've got amazing bikes coming up. This will probably come out after my review of the new Royal Enfield model. So make sure you go back and watch that if you haven't done already. It's going to be a very interesting one out in Barcelona with a brand new Royal Enfield with a 450 engine.
Now, looking at the quality, starting with the Triumph, every part of the bike is very, very high quality. You can't see anything on it that's poor. Moving through to the Royal Enfield, it isn't as good quality, there's no doubt about that, but nothing wrong with it, but it's not as perfect, if you like. So some of the weld, some of the paint, some of the bits and pieces like the brake levers, etc., are not as good as they are on the T100, but they're perfectly acceptable.
The engine on the Royal Enfield, I've said this before, is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best looking engines in a modern bike today. It's absolutely stunning, and especially in this polished metal finish, it looks fantastic. Much nicer than the black versions that you see in the Shotgun 650. And actually, on a side note, we said the Shotgun 650 recently doesn't feel like it has much character, whereas this definitely has more character than that, even though it's the same engine. I'd definitely have this bike. This is definitely the best bike to have out of the Royal Enfield lineup, in my opinion. But the engine on the Triumph, although it is stunning, it's not quite as beautiful as the one on the Royal Enfield. It's still a very good looking engine, don't get me wrong, but the finish on the Royal Enfield engine is just slightly better. The engine that's in the Speedmaster, the 1200cc Bonneville, on that version of the bike, they've used a bit more chrome and polished metal within the engine, which does look a bit nicer. So I think if that was incorporated into the T100, perhaps it would be a bit more comparable to the Royal Enfield's engine. The dials on the T100 are absolutely stunning. These are some of the nicest twin dials I've seen on a motorcycle. Absolutely beautiful, really, really nice. The ones on the Royal Enfield are very nice as well, but they're not quite as good looking as these.
The handling, like Darcy said, is very similar. Perhaps the Royal Enfield is a little bit more flickable, and that's because it's got a 24-degree rake, whereas that's got a 25.5, so a bit more relaxed. That gives you a little more stability perhaps, whereas that gives you a little bit more flickability. Now the wheelbase is 1450mm on the T100, 1398mm on the Interceptor. So the Interceptor is a smaller bike, but like you say, when you're sitting on it, it's got quite a long reach from the handlebars to the seat, so it feels bigger perhaps than it is, although the Triumph is slightly bigger. The Triumph weighs 228 kilos, the Interceptor 217, so a little bit lighter, not a lot. Fuel consumption 68.9 miles per gallon maximum on the T100 and 67.10 miles per gallon, UK miles per gallon on the RE, so very similar miles per gallon. And the price is perhaps the deciding factor, because this is £9,595, whereas that is £6,399. So the Interceptor 637393 over £3,000 cheaper. So the question you've got to ask yourself, is it £3,000 worse, or is that £3,000 better?
So for £3,000 or over £3,000 difference in the price, that's a lot of money actually, and you could almost buy a classic 350 and the Interceptor for the price of the Triumph. So that makes you think, well, is it worth the extra bit of cash? I suppose it depends what you're going to do with the bike. The Triumph might be a little bit better for longer journeys because it's got that extra bit of grunt, but the Royal Enfield will do it perfectly capably. You could do plenty of touring with this bike, put a touring seat on it, get some luggage capacity. You could do the same with the Triumph. So they're both as capable, and I think if it was my money, I probably would go for the Interceptor, or better yet, I'd go for a Moto Guzzi V7 Special, because that sits right in between both of these prices, and I think it's bang for your buck, absolutely brilliant. It's an underrated bike that not many people consider that they ought to consider. But this Royal Enfield is perhaps more of a Bonneville than the new Bonnevilles are. It's more true to the old classic Bonnevilles. It's very similar in styling. I mean, the fuel tank looks rather similar. It's very similar shapes. The silhouette is almost exactly the same. I mean, if you squinted and you blanked out the badges, I think to the untrained eye, you'd find it hard to tell much of a difference. They're very similar looking bikes, and both of them are absolutely beautiful. Something I've just noticed on the rear looks, this rear mudguard, you've got this sort of plastic extender, which I don't like the look of. The Triumph has got a nicer rear mudguard there. That's more sleek, all in one. Front mudguard, Triumph again, slightly nicer, a bit more coverage, and you've got this nice bracket here, so I think that looks better. So let us know in the comments below, which of these bikes would you choose with your own money? It's a hard choice, and we're trying to be ultra critical here because these are both fantastic bikes, there's no denying it. Both of them are fantastic, but in a comparison, you have to really try and think of the differences between the two. So make sure you subscribe and tell us down below what you think, and we'll see you in the next one.